Have you heard the story about the young man, very popular young man, um, was very successful, was about to have a deal, actually was announced a deal with a big corporation that was going to partner with him, which was going to make him even more successful than he already was. But there was a prominent figure who didn't like the things this young man said, the words he used, the language he used, and he said, you know what, hey, no, I'm not cool with this guy being given a major deal with this major corporation. So I'm going to have my followers, because he had a large following, bombard this company. And they did. They bombarded this company with, they just kept talking to this company, or sending communications to this company and said, hey, we don't like this. Y'all shouldn't be working with this individual. And the company said, the corporation said, okay, you got it. This is the way you feel. We're terminating our relationship with this individual. The prominent figure then says, hey, I won. That's good, because I don't like what this guy stands for, and he shouldn't be rewarded with a lucrative contract with this major corporation. The young man lost out on that deal. That young man's name was Chris Bridges. You know him most likely as Ludacris. The prominent figure was Bill O'Reilly. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. We're about to talk about big tech and conservatives. Are conservatives actually being silenced? Right now there is a huge uproar within the conservative community with claims that they're being silenced. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, was thrown off of social media. Facebook, Twitter, a bunch of other companies said they were no longer giving him a platform. Other conservatives, prominent names, were also banned, restricted, booted off of social media, various social media platforms. But there was hope for the conservative movement, because Parler, a conservative alternative to Twitter, which dubbed itself a free speech alternative to Twitter, was there and was welcoming all comers. Come to us if you don't like what's going on, what big tech is doing. And people were going. Parler's numbers were going up. And then Google and Apple decided, okay, we're not going to have Parler, the app, on our app stores anymore. That wasn't it, because then Amazon stepped in. And Amazon said, we're not going to have Parler on our service anymore. So while the being booted off the app stores meant you had to go directly to the website, now there was no website to go to. When that happened, I had to look at this and say, okay, yeah, this is some bullshit. Because at that point, it did seem like there was collusion. So now we're going to answer 3 questions. Are conservatives actually being silenced? 2, is this a huge threat to free speech? And 3, why is this happening? But the question is, with people like Trump, with the company, an entire company being silenced, is this real? Is this just a figment of conservatives' imagination? I'm not going to say this is a figment of their imagination, because there are conservatives that are actually being silenced, and there are calls to go even further. You've got people calling for OANN and Newsmax to be booted off of any cable company or streaming platform. And those are clear calls for conservatives to be silenced. However, let's keep in mind, it hasn't happened. OAN is still there. Newsmax is still there. Fox News is still there. Not to mention, as far as individual conservatives are concerned, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter continue to host and allow various conservatives to still spout whatever they wish to spout. Now, certain individuals who have chosen to spout things that may go too far in the big tech's estimation have been booted. But there appear to be a significant number of conservatives who still have a platform and who still have multiple platforms at their disposal to speak to their audiences. And more importantly and more accurately, to speak to the audiences of Twitter, of Facebook. Because without those, they would still have audiences, maybe just not as large audiences as they currently have. But that's what I want to get to, because if Twitter says we're banning every conservative, are conservatives silenced? No. Like I mentioned, there's still other social medias. There's still the cable companies that they have. But if all of social media said no, big tech does not control the internet exclusively. Big tech uses the internet. There's nothing stopping another Parler from stepping up. It's just, it will take somebody with savvy, perhaps more savvy than the makers of Parler, because in addition to not having their own servers, their security was just super lax and allowed people to just pull off all kinds of information about their users that should never have been accessible to outsiders. But the internet still exists for conservatives to use if they choose to. But nonetheless, there are those who are saying that this is a huge threat to free speech. Is it? Our second question. I actually want to take a look at some of the statements that have been made by various conservative figures, even some libertarian figures. One individual says that tech has more power than ever before over what people say. Let's just take a look 20 years ago. If you wanted to get a message out there, if you wanted to say, hello world, my name is Aaron. If I wanted to say, hello world, my name is Aaron, how would I get the message out? TV stations, they wouldn't give me a platform. I could go to every network and they would be like, no, who are you? We're not letting you come on our airwaves and say hello. Radio stations, I would go call up. Yeah, why would we? No, we're not giving you airtime. No. Go fuck yourself. Well, okay. Newspapers. Why are we giving you a story? No, we're not interested. I could buy an ad and maybe they successfully, maybe they would actually sell me an ad space, but maybe they wouldn't. So basically the only way would be to buy ad space, and at that point it's still very costly and not guaranteed that they will actually consent to the sale. Now you can do that for free. You can get on Twitter, say hello world, and you potentially have an audience of millions, hundreds of millions that will see your message and be like, hi back. You can write something on Twitter, you can share memes, you can share videos, you can share thoughts on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Right now you have regular people who have millions of subscribers watching them talk about their daily lives and record their daily lives. Big tech isn't the threat to free speech. Big tech has actually been the hugest advocate of free speech. Much huger, much bigger, much larger, much more of an advocate than anything before. Ordinary people now have the ability to reach millions thanks to the likes of Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. A regular person can interact with a celebrity automatically. The game has been changed. So to say that big tech has more control over what we say, I think big tech has given us more freedom to say it, more of an audience to say it too. So that's a huge difference from saying that big tech is controlling our speech. Another statement was made that what's happening with like Google and Apple and Amazon with regards to Parler was the biggest monopoly we've ever seen, the most clearest cut example of a monopoly we've ever seen, even bigger than big oil. The fact is, yes, that was very suspect. Amazon, Apple, Google, all doing that within days of each other. It was like within 3 days of each other. But there's still an entire internet out there. Even if you can't use Google, even if you can't use Apple app stores, even if you can't use Amazon web servers, you can use other web service company. You can build your own server farm, which would probably be the smartest thing. And the internet is still accessible for you to use. You can have people directly visit your website without having to get an app off of the Google Play Store. So I think that's another statement that just doesn't ring true. But then there's the article that Josh Hawley wrote, senator from Missouri. He wrote a story about the muzzling of America. And I want to touch on a key point, some few statements that he made in that article. One of the things he said, it will get worse. The tech titans have already booted dozens of conservatives off social media. Right in this statement, he is acknowledging that there are still many conservatives on social media, and his use of the word dozens makes it clear this isn't the apocalypse that many are claiming it to be. But the left and the corporations are challenging all of this now. Your conservative social platform isn't worth much when Amazon can shut it down. Your vote may still be yours, but if your party is denied the means to effectively organize by corporate monopolies, it's not going to win. So now, him talking about Amazon shutting it down is a direct reference to Parler. But once again, that doesn't happen if Parler has its own web servers. If Parler is using its own server farm or using just a different company under terms of a different contract, that doesn't happen. Parler doesn't get shut down by Apple. It happened because Parler was relying on somebody else's real estate to house their platform. That was their screw up. And they didn't have a backup in place, which was their lack of foresight and their just bad business practices. What really makes this interesting is the second part about the party being able to organize. See, political speech is very important and it's a vital component of free speech. And there is a threat to political organizing and political speech. But it isn't coming from big tech. Ask yourself, how many presidential candidates were on this debate stage leading up to the November election? What about 2016? Just think back, every 4 years. In fact, we don't even need to just look at presidential debates. Look at various debates, various political races. How many candidates do you see? The Republican and the Democrat, over and over and over again. Yes, there is a threat to political speech, but it's not coming from big tech. It's coming from your traditional media. It's coming from your CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, your CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. These are the entities The traditional media, these big mega corporations that run your TV, that control everything you see on your TV, they're the ones that are controlling and suppressing political speech. Because the Green Party wasn't on the stage. Howie Hawkins wasn't there. The Libertarian Party wasn't on the stage. Joe Jorgensen wasn't there this past election. But that's not Big Tech's fault. And where is Josh Hawley complaining and advocating, screaming at the top of his lungs to stop this suppression of political speech? Was he writing any op-eds then? See, Big Tech was actually the one that were providing platforms for alternative candidates, for non-establishment, non-approved corporate candidates. They had Facebook pages, they had ability to reach out, Twitter, to constituents through social media. Why? Because of Big Tech, not traditional media. Traditional media was the realization and is the realization of that threat and has been for quite some time. I want to read another statement from Josh Hawley's article. We need to stand up for the basic principles that join all Americans together. The right to speak freely, to debate openly, and to address our differences graciously without fear of being silenced or punished for dissenting views. This brings us to our third question. Why is this happening? Or more accurately, why is this happening now? The fact is, it isn't happening now. If you remember the story I began with, Bill O'Reilly versus Ludacris, this has been happening for quite some time. That happened in 2002, nearly 20 years ago. Nearly 20 years ago, conservatives were engaging in cancel culture. So, where did cancel culture come from? Why is cancel culture happening now? It's not happening now. It's been happening for a long time. And if conservatives want to know why it's happening, they need to look in the mirror, because they invented cancel culture. And it was even long before 2002 that this started occurring. So Bill O'Reilly interfered with Ludacris's Pepsi deal. In 1989, Madonna had a Pepsi deal. Guess who interfered with that? Conservatives again. Because conservatives have long desired to suppress anybody that does not share their values, their morals, their view of the world. So as he says, the right to speak freely, to address our differences graciously without fear of being silenced? No, that was the point. So conservatives have long wanted to silence those who did not share their opinions. And they had no problem using corporate power and even government power. And in fact, this conservative drive is related directly to Section 230, which was part of a law that the conservatives had supported to restrict free speech on the internet. One of the things they wanted to do was restrict indecent speech. So, whether it's by government, by corporate power, conservatives are the arbiters and inventors of cancel culture. If they want to stop it, they need to look in the mirror. Thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.